Good afternoon. Jim Whitehead here. As promised, I said I would come back and discuss what we did to protect us from Milton. Now, admittedly, when a storm is coming, they're very good, as I mentioned a couple days ago, that they can predict pretty much the actual the track of a hurricane, especially as it gets closer to the United States in this case. The problem they have, and it's not their fault, they have wonderful computer models that get better every year, and with the potential of AI, I don't want to even say potential, the use of AI is going to make it even better. The only problem in general is the fact that they're not able too well to say, okay, it's going to be a category 5, 4, 3, especially if it's, these storms, and they even talk about the eye wall being the middle of the storm in so many words. And what happens is the eye wall goes through regeneration in so many hours. And when it regenerates the eye wall, it could be a larger storm, a smaller storm. It's whatever it can be or will be. Now, the other thing they have a hard time with, and again, this is like playing the lottery and you say, well, I have a hard time winning. Well, probably because it's 1 billion to 1, but they also have an issue where they have to try to calculate, waves, onshore waves and water. And I'm sorry, I'm losing exactly what we're trying to say. A surge. I'm sorry. Oh, boy. It's been a very kind of sad and happy and, scary 2 to 3 days. Not just for us, but for everybody. We're in, I call her 24, and Jamie, my boss, we're in southwest Florida. And yeah, especially as storms go, because I used to be on the Atlantic, as storms go, what happens more into the season, they come up in the Gulf or develop in the Gulf, around the Yucatan, Mexico, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this storm was kind of like, well, yeah, it might, and then it was like, it's probably going to, and you would look at it, and it would be like, they're saying that's going to turn into a hurricane? Well, they're good at that too. I know it looks like, nothing, but it's going to turn into something, and it really did. And this is what's the scary part of our environment at this point in time is the unpredictability because of all the heat in the air, the heat in the water especially. And the Gulf, which is not like the Atlantic, heats up even more. And as all the forecasters will say, the warmer the water is, the more the fuel that's going to be available to make the storm bigger and stronger. Okay, my point today, and in fact, I'm going to be doing more lives than non-lives because, one, I really enjoy it, and I like doing it. I don't know what else to say, but I think it's a good point of where it gets real information to my followers and those that would be kind enough to follow me in the future. So, again, this is discussing Milton. And, okay. And again, this is all talking about how we got ready, not just for Milton, but before this, where, we needed to realize that one of the worst things with any hurricane, besides wind and the surge, is not having electricity. And as I also have said, which is really annoying, over here in Southwest and Naples, we also don't have any cell phone service. So in other words, the only reason I have cell phone right at the moment is because of my Wi-Fi. And the reason for that is there are no cell towers that are near enough to us. And it's not that we're in the Everglades. I mean, you'd be saying, well, where the heck are you? So, well, we're 20 miles outside of the main point of Naples. They'd say, and you have no cell phone service? Yes, that's exactly right. So anyway, now what we're talking about is you're looking at, and I used to be installing for 20 years standby generators, mainly Generac. Good company, good equipment. But when they go and they advertise, and I know when in these whole things we talk a lot about different things, and I do this unscripted, so it's kind of where my brain goes and things I want to tell you. But I did Generac. Now Generac is good, and they'll say in all the advertisements that they put forth on, especially the Weather Channel, you want to be, if you lose star, and they show the home going black and without power and typically most generators take about 30 seconds to supply power back to you if they're going to be okay. That's another whole issue. I took care of these generators for 20 plus years, and I had them all monitored, so I would know instantly if a generator said, I'm not happy, I'm not going to start. So, you'd rather be taking care of it now than 4 o'clock in the morning. So anyway, what I've found that, and I started to say that when Generac advertises, they're saying, okay, low monthly payments, and now they were given a 5-year warranty, which they used to give 7 and 10 year. I really don't understand why they've done that. And again, I follow what my brain wants to tell you, so please understand, but it's always something that I'm trying to be helpful. The typical Generac comes with a limited 5-year warranty. Now, limited means, and I hated these because they would be, okay, it's going to cover you full for 2 years, and then it's going to basically drop down to where it's, parts only. I mean, really a very poor warranty. And as my being a dealer, and somebody says, well, wait a minute, what do you mean? I bought a generator from you 2 years ago. We have a 5-year warranty. Well, it's not a full warranty for the full 5 years. So now, and they used to like as a carrot, and they were pretty fairly priced. They would say you can get a 7-year, or we're giving a 7-year bumper-to-bumper warranty, or a 10-year bumper-to-bumper warranty. And yes, of course, you could buy these, but they'd be like $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 or more. And the problem with standby generators, it's not even what I'm talking about, the money and how much and It's the installation. So when they go, low monthly payments, well, what happens is, let's say the typical standby would be $6,000. But the installation, honestly, without adding money in, like, hey, let's really make a killing on this, would cost another $15,000 because we have to put gas in. We have to do slabs. We have to do transfer switches. All additional dollars. So the point would be you're going to spend a lot more money and it's going to take a lot more time. So what I am very happy to have found, and it's not where it was hidden, but are and they call them solar generators. I don't like that term because that's really not what they're doing. They're not generating solar. Sun generates solar, and panels take in sun, yada, yada, yada. So, but before, and this is the EcoFlow Ultra, before this, they had battery systems, and today's batteries are great. And again, I know if you watch this 2 years from now, they'll say, well, Jim said they were great back then. Well, they'll be better 3 years from now. And that's the neat thing about everything getting better and better and better. So what you're looking at is what we call the EcoFlow Ultra. And you're looking at where it has a control panel readout on the front of the device that will tell you how much power you're bringing in. And I'll get into the charging in the issue, but that's where on the left side you're seeing how much am I putting into those batteries. And at the same time on the right, it's showing how much is going out to run. Now we have this in the garage, and that's another thing that's a benefit. And you could even have it in your house. You know, people say, oh, generators and gee, gas and yada, 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 and propane and all that stuff. Well, these are relatively just, they're battery systems. So they don't give off odors, they don't give off fumes or anything that's dangerous. But the point and the reality is you don't have to put it in your home. It's safe in your garage and you can close the door. And make sure that somebody doesn't decide that they want your EcoFlow. So there we go, and you're gonna, as I progress, you're seeing on the right the power cord where it's supplying power to our home. Now, one would say, wait a minute, you were just talking about EcoFlow and batteries and you used to do generators. Well, what we did on this particular storm is we bought, and we spent $1,000 on it. We bought a generator that, when necessary, I could charge the batteries. And you'll see a picture, and I'll point it out as to showing how much power we were bringing in from the generator. Because, for example, we started, and without any power source with recharging, we have about, with the 3 batteries. Now, we buy them with 1 battery. You can add another battery. You can add another battery. Up to 5 batteries per inverter. And what you were looking at a minute ago, let me go back on that. You're seeing the inverter, which is on the top, and that has where there's multiple connections. Yes, you can charge your phone if you want, and et cetera, but really, I don't really even care about that. You can get a small little, small device, and all the companies that make these, in essence, say, you can buy the smaller ones, and they're good for charging your phone and so on and so forth. But what you're seeing is the inverter is on top. And if you can see them, we've got 3 batteries. Now, I could add at any time, tomorrow, a month from now, a year from now, I could add additional batteries. And each battery is 6 kilowatt hours. So I could add, just as this sits, I could add another 2 batteries and add another 12 hours of backup. But there's a point at which, in some way, you've got to charge the batteries. So we decided, because you can use solar panels, you can use a device that you hook to your car. I can go on and on. There's multiple ways of charging this system. But in the sense of wanting and making sure that we, regardless how long we were out of power, we would use the unit for so many hours and then say, well, it's time to charge it. So that we decided on a generator. And the neatest thing, because as a Generac dealer, I mainly sold and installed all sizes of what we call standbys. If somebody said to me, hey, Jim, I want to buy one of Generac's gasoline portables that are on wheels, they make 2 especially, and especially what we call a 17500 watt unit. They make it where it can run an air conditioner, it can run a home. But why I would say to people, because they say, well, I don't think I can afford a standby. So can we do a portable Generac and have it where we power our home with that? And I'd say, here's the truth. Gasoline is a terrible fuel. And why I say that is it basically goes bad pretty quickly. Even if you treat gas with one product is called stable. It helps it kind of like stay okay for 6 months, but then it depends on where you keep it. It's inside a generator in the gas tank. Where are you keeping that generator? Outside, in the garage? I mean, you can't put it in the home. So I ran all over town for 2 days because you'd say, oh, I hear that XYZ are getting generators in. Well, I was running around trying to find one because we thought the season might have been over. But we would find in one Tractor Supply, pretty neat store actually, they said that they were getting in 60 generators for I think Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon. Well, when I got there and to get in line, they were saying they were all Generacs. But see, Generac, unfortunately, they don't make propane or dual fuel generators. It's gasoline or gasoline. And what I would say to customers, as I said, that, gee, it's cheaper. Can we do a Generac portable with a manual transfer switch? I said, I won't do it. I won't sell it to you. And they look at me like, why? I'd say, because you're not going to be happy. Because what's going to happen is, the first time you run it, it's going to be great. Then you're going to put it off. And, I work with people for over 20 years, so I know human nature when it comes to generators. When the storm's over and they're done with the generator, they would just, put it in the garage somewhere. and it would sit with gas in it. And I would try to train people, but it didn't work. So when I drove around and I'd say, they'd say, yeah, we get gasoline generators. Can't buy it, won't buy it. Long story short, I went to two Home Depots and then a Lowe's. And then when I found that Tractor Supply was just getting Generacs that were gasoline powered, I said, I'm driving back, and I said, let me see if I can find some solar panels. Because yes, with the EcoFlow, you can charge with solar panels. The only problem with that is, unless you have sun, you're not going to get a lot of power. And when you're running a whole house, it basically, solar panels for needing to run a generator for 2, 3, 4 days, you can have solar at the same time. That's what's nice about it. You could be running a generator and have solar panels, et cetera, But this is what you're looking at, and this is not, how would you say, sponsored. This is a Champion portable unit, and as you can see, that it's got multiple points of connection. I had to find one that would be appropriate for where I was plugging it into my EcoFlow, but it's dual fuel. And what we did about 2 months ago, we said, hey, because I was a gas guy, gas contractor when I was, younger in the generator business and before we moved over here. Those are what we call 100-pounders. Each tank weighs about 100 pounds. And they hold about 27 gallons each. And you can't see it real well, but it's wide in, so both tanks are kind of like interconnected. And the black on the right-hand side, that's going to the generator. And again, the gas is very clean burning. Propane never goes bad. And that's the way it is. The only downside, I never like to tell half a story, that's probably the story of my life, is if you look at, if I did a close-up of the Champion, and this is the case with all generators, if it's a dual fuel, some are even tri-fuel, where you can actually even run them on natural gas. But they'll say, okay, on gasoline, you're going to see a higher number of starting amps and running amps and yada, yada, yada. Propane, the numbers are less because it's on a scale of 1, and you won't be tested on this, but on a scale of 1 to 6, gasoline is a 6, meaning that's the best bang for the buck in a sense of power when it's being burnt. I mean, it would be the same in a car. You get a little more horsepower, yada, 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 than if you had in a car that ran on propane. So that's the same with the generator. So you have to be very careful, even though you're going in the right direction, that it's going to be less power. So anyways, you can see, and this picture is not real good, and sometimes, you'd say, hey, come on, Jim, take closer up pictures. Anyway, you're looking at the EcoFlow as it was when we were running without power yesterday. And the yellow cord is coming from the generator, in a sense, power-wise. And not that you even need to know this, but that connection that I used on that generator, and there were more than one connection, was what we call 240 volts, 30 amps. And that's a pretty large extension cord. And on the right side of the generator, you'll see where the yellow connects to a black connector, and that goes into the EcoFlow. And that is the way to hook in a generator that you hopefully have the right connector and the right cable and the right generator. But here we go. And what you're seeing is that's how much is on the right side is how much is being used in the sense of power. And I'll show you how I had integrated it into our main home panel. And on the left side is how many watts are going into the battery. So you can see I'm only putting out 600 watts, but I'm bringing in 18. So in other words, I'm not dropping this battery down, or the batteries down. I'm slowly, even though I'm using some of the power, this is good. And you can even go higher than I had it as high as 4,000 watts, 3,000 watts, 3,500. Now, this is our main panel. And the funny thing, a lot of things you've learned over the years, the problem with most people's panels, they're not labeled real well. Or they were labeled great to begin with, but people moved breakers around. So I'd say about 2 months ago, I said, I've got to get a better handle on what is what. Now, yes, you can tell from what we call a two-pole breaker, like in the upper left corner, the very top. That's the AC compressor. That's what it looks like, two breakers, but they're connected together, and that makes it where it's bringing in 120 on one leg, another 120 on the other leg, so now you have 240. Air conditioners need 240 generally. Hot water heaters, stoves, dryers, water pumps. We have a well here. So anyway, the first thing I had to do was say, I'm going to really have it where I'm going to know what is in this panel. So as you can see, I labeled the breakers themselves, and I also relabeled to correspond so I didn't get off on the actual door itself. Now, what you can see in the lower left corner is the EcoFlow breaker, and in this case, all the other breakers are on, and the EcoFlow is off because, again, at that time when I took this picture, I had power from the utility, in this case FPL. And what is also down below that EcoFlow is where, for example, it blocks right below, and right where that is on the left, there's the main breaker for the home. In other words, you turn that breaker off, all the breakers you will see have no power. But here's where the problem is. If you, let's say you lose power, you go in and you say, okay, I'm going to put us on our EcoFlow, and you flip the EcoFlow on, the other breaker, the FPL breaker is if you don't put it off. At that point in time, since no utility power is coming into the home, you'd be okay. But this is why that unit that's in the lower left, it blocks whatever breaker you're not using. It keeps it so you can't put that on too. So the FPL breaker goes off, so that when you put the EcoFlow breaker on, you don't have the potential of when you get your utility power back, of being on two powers at the same time. You don't want that. You will fry. You could even create a fire, to be real honest with you. And I never say anything that's worse than it is. Oh, but the point is, you can't be on two powers at the same time. So what you're seeing, what I'm doing right now, is a manual configuration. In other words, as I said, if we lost power right now, I'd be going over, shutting off the FPL, flipping up, and then getting the Echo Flow online, and then flip the Echo Flow on. What you automatically would do is say, well, I'm not going to run the hot water heater all the time, because you got to conserve power. That's the bottom line, regardless of circumstances. You say, well, I don't need hot water 24/7. We don't need to wash clothes. We don't need to cook a turkey. Yes, I had to leave the AC on and the water pump. Now, one little aside. In April, we bought this home a year and a half ago, and we had an air conditioner that was about 8 years old. It was a 3.5 ton. The problem, and again, this is where hopefully one could go back and look at this and say, "Ooh, yeah, I missed something, or I didn't understand something." And of course, as always, in the comments, ask me questions. People typically don't, and I feel bad about it because I really like to help people. That's why I love being in the generator business. But anyway, bottom line is, you have to make sure that you don't overload the generator. And with it being in this sense of being manual, you're making sure that you only have, in the sense of breaker being on if you need to use it. And if it's like we only went for about 2 days. We were lucky because we were in South Florida, and unfortunately the storm hit Tampa, Sarasota, etc., etc. We just were blessed, and there's a lot of good people out there. So sometimes I don't understand why we're so blessed and other people aren't. But what we did in April, we said, okay, we got to get set up to be more user power friendly. Most ACs have a very high amperage to start them up. It's called locked rotor amps, or inrush voltage. They don't have to be this way, but that's how, as you say, well, that's how we build them, because it's cheaper. With a rotary compressor, it's just going to take a lot of amperage to get that compressor going. And then once it gets going, it says, oh, okay, I can kind of bring that down. So you will hear one of those typical ACs, I'm talking in general without a generator issue, the AC will sound louder when it goes to start up. But you'll hear it higher pitch noise, and then you will literally hear it drop down in the amount of noise it's making. And that's all amperage. Now with utility companies, it's unlimited amperage, because you've got, and I'm going to get into another lie talking about, again, our transformers up on poles. But the very high tension lines, I don't know why they call them high tension, but they have 17,000 volts, 10,000 volts. And that, in essence, translates into having almost an unlimited amperage. So it doesn't say when your AC, when you're on utility power, that, oh, gee, my there's just too much amperage being drawn at the same time. No, it just seems like it's unlimited, almost unlimited. So, bottom line, the problem though, when you're on a generator situation, which is any generator, is limited to startup amperage. And the echo flow, for example, is 125 amps, but that's for everything. So we said, okay, even though we had the echo flow, we know that we'd be wise to put in a air conditioner that has very low startup amperage. And people would say, well, why don't they make them all this way? Well, it's all money. Follow the money, as we say. We spent at least probably a couple $1,000s more on the same size. Well, we bought a 4-ton, but it had where it has 5 speeds. Most of the ACs we deal with and had to deal with for 20 years, some of them just 1 speed. They start up at high speed. And yeah, they quiet down only because of amperage. But the compressor isn't going, hey, I'm just going to calm way down. No, that's what the compressor is going to do. But with this unit that we bought in April, and again, the other AC was still working fine. So somebody said, well, why didn't you just wait for it to break? I said, we have to have an AC that is generator friendly. And what happened is, as I said, this particular unit was more money, but it has 5 speeds. And I know most people would say, well, that sounds logical. And it is, but it costs a little bit more. They have gone over to be inverter technology. Inverters don't have to start up at full speed. So this particular unit literally has 5 speeds. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It never starts. It could be 180 degrees out. I hope it's not going to be that high. But it would say, I really have to ramp up. But I'm going to start up at speed number 1, which is the lowest amperage. And then I'm going to progress up from number 1. So it isn't where we go from, let's say, 3 amps to go into the next speed. It's maybe 3 amps. So it isn't even where, well, yeah, the first one's low, the next one is much higher. No, it allows it to work harder, but it's not doing anything with increasing the startup amperage. So when we got that installed, and I had moved the echo flow that you have seen in the pictures from this building. I was using it off-grid, which was great to learn the system. But it was like, Jim, hurricane's coming, you need this to be, so you can use it for the home. So we moved it over. And obviously we bought an AC that we knew could run or start with pretty much any generator. Bottom line, so and how I would say, because all the time I was in the generator business, people would say, to save money, I don't really need, because they know air conditioning would use more power. They'd say, I don't really need the air conditioning. And I'd say, I'm not installing especially anybody, but especially elderly people. Am I elderly? Yep, I am. But anyway, I'd say, no. This is almost like the portable generators. No, I'm not going to sell you a generator and install a generator that won't run your air conditioners, or at least one air conditioner. And it all depends. You say, well, I can't afford that larger generator. So, I say, well, we've got to put one in and get it set up to run on, when you lose power. Now, the other device, and I know I'm telling you a lot of information. The good thing with YouTube, you can keep going back and back and back. You say, oh, I forgot a little bit about this, a little bit about that. But the point is, excuse me, that these air conditioners, even though they cost more, they pay for themselves over time. And what I started to say is, before they started making ACs that were kind of built this way, we would, and this would be if I was at your house and you had an AC that was probably 10 years old, and you look at the side of the AC, it will give you a number of what we call LRA, that's locked rotor amps. And that is telling you the amperage that AC needs just to start up. And then there's an RLA that is the running amperage. So you'll see, let's say a 4-ton, it's going to take 130, 140 amps to start it up, but it's only going to take 25, 30 to run it. So the point is, you got to just get that AC started. And we would put, we still do it today. Isn't, well, oh, you mean I got to buy a whole new AC? No. Unless you feel it's time. We have what we call a hard start kit. And they're called by so many different names. Sure Start, Quick Start, so on and so forth. And they're about $400 installed. But the neatest thing, besides now bringing that startup amperage down for your generator, it also has it where it does that in the sense of low startup amperage every time your AC goes to start. And that's whether it's a beautiful sunny day in the winter, a beautiful hot day in the summer. It just says, no. You've got to learn a new trick. I'm only going to start you up in low speed, which means low voltage, low amperage. And I'm going to let you work up, and we're good. So that was the tool that we had to use to have it with people that couldn't afford a bigger generator, but they would still have it where they would have their air conditioning. So now, you might say, well, Jim, what if you lose power in the middle of the night? Yes, with my setup right now, it's manual. So yes, I will have to go out into the garage. We have flashlights strategically placed. My wife is very good at that. And we would have it where, you have to get up in the middle of the night because you lost power to go out in the garage to get everything going. Obviously, we wouldn't be leaving the generator out because we wish that everybody wouldn't steal generators. Some wouldn't, some do. So, bottom line. But again, we have enough battery storage to get us through the night. But generally, all the Generacs I installed we installed them with an automatic transfer switch. Now, this is the EcoFlow transfer switch, which, yes, I will be adding to our setup here. But, it's like with anything, how much you can afford. Storms coming. There's certain things you got to, say, well, we can get this ready, that ready. But yes, we will be adding that. And in essence, and this is even better, a better transfer switch in as they go, because what you're looking at the bottom, my EcoFlow, when I install this, my EcoFlow will hook into one of those 3 connections at the bottom. And you say, well, what are the other 2 for? They're for another whole set of EcoFlow. So in other words, and you'll see a picture, and I'll point it out again, you can go up to, because remember I said I could put 5 batteries on my particular inverter system? Well, if I added another EcoFlow inverter, I could add 5 batteries. I can add a third one. So that's where you see the 3, the 3 connections. So we can go from, if you have one battery, 6 kilowatt hours, go up to 90 kilowatt hours. Now, the greatest thing, and if someone said, well, Jim, can I increase the power of my standby generator? I'd say, no, that's how they come. We sized the generator to your home. Say, yeah, but I'm going to add another room, family room. We're going to do the upstairs, turn it into, livable space. Well, yeah, you're basically not going to have enough power probably for what you've added, because again, and if everything was free, every generator installation would be a bigger generator, but nothing's free. So we would have to say, okay, we can go from this size up to this size. And the larger you went, the more cost. So anyway, what happens with this, and I know I'm talking a lot. Hopefully this is like you'd say, well, come on, Jim, I can't watch this whole thing. Well, come back to it. But what the EcoFlow transfer switch does is it's monitoring your power. And it's integrated right into your main panel that I showed you what my main panel was. And this is exactly what will happen when I add this. And what happens is, automatically, you lose power. The EcoFlow transfer switch says, okay, you're out of power from utility, or FPL in this case. We're going to shut that off. Like I said, the manual thing you had to do, make sure don't have both on at the same time. This does it automatically for you, so you can't mess it up. It says, okay, no power, I'm going to disconnect the utility. And it stays disconnected. It puts you on the circuits that are in this, and that's not open, but if you opened it up, it looks like it's what we call a sub panel. It goes right next to your main panel. And so what happens is, now you're running off those circuits that's in the EcoFlow, and you're pulling power from any of those connections down below. And again, it could be 1 connection, 2, or 3. And that's what's neat about EcoFlow. And there's other, Anchor makes a very good multi-size system, Bluetti. So it isn't that it's just EcoFlow, but I've been using EcoFlow equipment for coming close to a year now. And yeah, I'll be honest with you, the tech support isn't real good. And that's why, as I did with the generator business, I had to use this equipment before I could install the equipment. I mean, I will be honest, in 2006, I went into the generator business right after Hurricane Wilma in 2005, and no one knew anything about installing generators. I didn't. I was a tech guy, still am a tech guy, but I kind of thought they were kind of like close. No, they're not. And I didn't know what I was doing. You had to go through the unbelievable permit process, which to stay as a viable company, within a year or so after I started, I was doing my own permitting, because that would be another cost center that you would have to pay somebody to prepare permits for the Johnson's generator installation and gas installation and electrical. And so you would be putting in multiple permits for multiple different services, and they didn't know what they were doing. So it would take forever to get the permits to do an installation. And it's not that the EcoFlow has no permit potential and need, but there isn't anywhere, take my word for it, because I did it for 20 plus years. It was a good business. It basically was very tedious, and a generator would take 2 months to install it. And people say, well, what do? Are you just goofing off? I'd say, no, unfortunately, with permitting, getting the permits approved, getting the equipment, with COVID, most of the Generacs were a year out. And you'd be like, how can I run a business if I can't add, and wait, I have to wait a year? And what was also not real good, that if you, let's use a number, the generator might cost $10,000. And if they had a price increase, and this was unfair, I tell you the good things and I tell you the bad things, but they would say, okay, even where you have paid us, and they would, if you put an order in, you would have it where if you don't pay for that whole generator and all the equipment you've ordered, within about 5 days, that order goes away. So I would be overnighting money to Generac so that, the order got placed. But what they did, and I really thought this was very, very unfair, if they had a price increase, even though you paid for the generator and the equipment, but if they would have a price increase any time from that point to when the unit was ready to ship, 365 days, I would have to pay, or the customer would have to pay the 5% price increase. So, I mean, it really, that was one of the things, it almost adds insult to injuries. But anyway, so this does it automatically for you. It puts you on the circuits that you've decided you need to have running, and it's pulling power from your battery system, and you can charge your battery system. So, as I said for many years, you can't count on other people or other services. You can't count on the electric company. And I'm going to do a separate live again on some of the things that happened. And I shouldn't even be laughing, because it really did make me a little not happy. But, as we, thank God, we can realize and say, well, come on, Jim, lighten up. But anyway, when the power comes back from your utility, the Echo Flow transfer switch says, oh, power's back. And what it will do, it will disconnect the circuits that you have in that Echo Flow sub panel, and it will flip you back. I mean, in other words, it shuts that panel off and puts you back on your main electrical panel. So again, no point of being on two powers at the same time and frying everything. So anyway, we're getting there. We're almost done. And I know they say, well, you're going to do this all day? All right. The picture you see, and again, I admit it's probably hard to see a little bit, but that is, if you're looking on the left side of the garage, you're seeing the three, and it could be one, it could be two, it could be three, but you're seeing three sets of having an inverter, three inverters, and each one having 5 batteries, and a cable goes to what we call the SP2, which is the Echo Flow transfer switch. Now, showing the one way, and I mentioned it earlier, that you can power these units or charge these units are with solar panels. Now, I'm not a big, even though when I couldn't get Generac standbys, I switched over to solar, and then I decided to move over here, and, that didn't work real well because I'm the type of guy, I won't start a job if I'm saying, I'm not going to be here in a month, or, no, I won't start any work for somebody unless I know I'm here. Now, could I fall off the end of the earth because the earth opens up? Yeah, but I don't know that. So anyway, what you're seeing again, and as I started to say, when I went kind of in the solar business, it isn't where, oh, no, you mean I've got to put solar panels up on my roof, and oh, gee. No, you don't. You can do ground level. And if you're only using you need the Echo Flow, and quite honestly, when I was running around trying to find the right dual fuel generator, and when it looked like I was not going to be successful, and I don't usually give up, but, it's like you got to admit, sometimes something's not going to work. But bottom line, before I went the last shot to Home Depot again, I called, and this was on, again, Tuesday again, I think. I called some solar companies here in Naples. Most of them only do installations. So, no, I wasn't going to be paying anybody. I wanted to just have it where I could potentially go buy some solar panels. And I still might do that. So it isn't like, well, you have a generator, and well, why would you get panels? Well, panels you can use all the time. And because they're not, how would you say, installed, meaning those can be moved, as you see on the right, lower right, you really don't need to get permitting because they're on the ground. You're not permanently connecting or running wire to, on the ground. It's literally, you put them out, you use them, you got the wire. You say, well, I don't need them anymore. They fold up. The front section or the front unit, that will fold up. And the panel behind it, I think it's a set of 2. Those are rigid solar panels, but they're not that crazy heavy. So if you say, oh, I want to bring those panels into the garage, you can do that. Now the ones in the front are a little lighter. So anyway, okay, last thing to say is you got to be able to monitor everything that's going on. And yes, the EcoFlow, as I showed you at the beginning, has a panel, a panel right on the unit that will tell you everything you need to know. How much power you're using, how much power is coming in, how much power is left. There's also one for the phone. And this is just a picture of my phone. And it's showing me that, and this was late yesterday when I was saying, well, we've got to get the battery system, the EcoFlow system batteries charged up to go overnight. We ended up not needing to because we got power back about 7 o'clock, but we didn't know that. So anyway, what you see, this is on my phone, and on the middle left, you're seeing 4.01 watts. That's the amount of power that I'm bringing in from that generator I showed you. Now, that's a good amount of wattage. And again, I'm only using 575. So, again, a net increase of being able to charge is about 3,500 watts. Now, the 2.29, and you keep an eye on that, but one, it tells you the percent down below, which you can't probably see, of what percent the batteries are. And these, in the case of the 3 batteries, they act as one in a sense. So anyway, the 2.29 is telling me at that rate of power coming from the generator into the battery system, and the fact that I'm using 575, I think the AC wasn't running right at that point, it's going to tell me that my batteries will be up to 100% in about 2 hours and 29 minutes. So that's what we would have done last night if we didn't get our power back. We'd say, okay, I've got to go out, I got to put the generator on, and I'd be able to literally be sitting in our home saying, okay, this is how much water is going into the unit, this is when they're going to be charged. And I keep looking at it here and there to say, okay, well, now we're up to 70%, 80%, 90%, et cetera, et cetera. So it's the coolest thing in the world, to be real honest with you. Anyway, I'm sorry these are long. I have a tendency to tell the whole story. But, I look at YouTube as being hopefully a teaching opportunity. I mean, it's fun to do animals, and I am an animal channel mainly, but it also, where you say some things you should be telling people because that's what YouTube's about. Entertainment, teaching, learning how to do things you just don't know how to do. And don't think I didn't use YouTube and still do for all EcoFlow related or non-EcoFlow equipment. It's great. And you'll learn how to install things that you wouldn't have known. So it's pretty cool. But anyway, thank you very much. And please, leave some comments, any questions. I really, really appreciate it. And as I've ended all my presentations the last week or so, my very, very best to anybody and everybody that's affected by these storms. Animals, not animals, people. And I'm just so very sorry that we can't control these hurricanes. Someday we will. And it's just you have to be prepared. And hopefully this presentation will help you. And thank you again. This is Jim Whitehead, All Power Group, and Phoenix Animal. signing off. Thank you very much again.